Thank you for joining our session on Pathways to Content and Language Integration. We're excited to share key insights from our journey in supporting multilingual learners in Red Clay. In this session, we'll walk you through some of the intentional steps we've taken to promote the belief that every teacher is a language teacher, a mindset shift that is central to our work. We'll highlight three foundational factors that drive our efforts toward integrating content and language integration: capacity building, collaboration, and a commitment to sustainability. These pillars have been critical in helping us increase student achievement and to improve outcomes for all of our learners.
Hi, before we begin, I would like to introduce myself as well as my colleagues that have worked to highlight the great things that Red Clay has done to support content and language integrations in order to better support our multilingual learner population within our district. I am Lana Quinn, a school based multilingual learner instructional coach at Stanton Middle School. I have had the pleasure of collaborating with Natasha Diokno, one of our district's MLL instructional coaches, and Letha Palmer, a multilingual learner teacher at HB DuPont Middle School. For our presentation today, we chose to focus on two objectives. One is a DOE objective. This objective is to identify ways to build capacity of district-wide educators of our multilingual learners. And with this, we will explain how opportunities were created for collaborations among partners to share resources, address challenges, and foster positive outcomes for our students. Our Red Clay objective is to highlight inclusive practices across schools that align beliefs and promote content and language integration.
So, let's take a look at our agenda. First, we'll start with a description of methods we use to build the capacity of our content teachers as well as of our MLL teachers. Next, we'll highlight steps we took to foster collaborations throughout the district. And then we'll take some time to share our thinking of ways to sustain the process. And finally, we'll wrap up with our student outcomes and perspectives from members of our learning community.
Delaware is one of the fastest growing states in the nation for multilingual learners. Right now, Delaware has over 17,000 MLL students representing more than 100 languages spoken at home. That number continues to grow, making it more important than ever for us to understand and support these students in our classrooms. As Delaware's largest school district, Red Clay is a place of innovation, community, and success. Across 24 schools, we support students at every stage of their academic journey. 13 middle schools lay the foundation for lifelong learning. 4 middle schools help students grow and explore. 2 high schools prepare them for their futures. 3 combined middle and high schools offer a unique learning pathway. And 2 charter schools expand opportunities for students. Red Clay is a place where every student can be successful. Each presenter represents a different part of Red Clay Consolidated School District, bringing unique perspectives and experiences to today's discussion. Here are the demographics of the different areas and schools that we each work in.
As educators, we must remember that English language learner is a temporary status, not a permanent label. Our goal is to ensure that multilingual learners develop the language skills they need to fully engage in academic content. To achieve this, there are two things that we believe that need to be done. The first issue that we identified is that content, language, and literacy integration needs to happen across all content areas, not solely in an English language development class. The second issue we identified is the alignment of curriculum to support multilingual learners in a literacy dominant content area.
Here's a snapshot of our collaborative efforts to support content and language integration. The MLL office has partnered with various departments, teams, and educators at the state, district, and school levels to implement best practices to promote the integration of content and language instruction across our district. Moving forward, We aim to sustain this work through ongoing professional learning, collaborative planning, data analysis, and reflective conversations. Here's a more detailed look at a plan that was drafted out last year. This plan teases out some ideas of ways to strategically support content and language integration using the SIPE framework. Take a few moments to look over the organizer. You may notice co-teaching and collaboration are listed under Phase 2. The initial thinking was that co-teaching and collaboration would fit into Phase 2. However, I believe co-teaching and collaboration would support all three phases of our plan.
The goal of our implementation is to increase academics performance and engagement for our multilingual learners. However, for this initiative to be sustainable and impactful, we need to build capacity within schools across our district. We know multilingual learner students only spend a small portion of their day with their multilingual learner teacher. Yet, language acquisition is not confined to a single classroom. As we know, it can happen in an English language development class or during pushing support. However, it must be an ongoing process that happens in every class across all content areas. This means that content teachers do play a key role in language development as well.
As part of our ongoing support for content and language integration, we've implemented several key strategies to build teacher capacity and ensure meaningful impact in classrooms. Data collection and reviews help us stay grounded in evidence, allowing us to identify trends, track progress, and make informed instructional decisions. Classroom visits and debriefs give us real-time insight into implementation, followed by reflective conversations that celebrate success and explore next steps. Make and Takes offer teachers dedicated time, space, and resources to design practical instructional supports they can use immediately with their students. Professional learning communities create a collaborative space for teachers to share strategies, reflect on practice, and learn from one another. Coaching conversations, whether one on one or with grade level teams, provide personalized support, spark new ideas, and keep the focus on continuous growth. Together, these practices are helping us build momentum, deepen instructional practices, and stay aligned with our shared vision for multilingual learner success. It has been an absolute pleasure, blessing, and honor to work alongside the passionate and dedicated teachers of Red Clay. Across the district, we've had the opportunity to facilitate site-based SIOP trainings in several of our elementary schools, as well as district-level sessions tailored to specific content areas. We hosted content-specific trainings for ELA teachers and also led in-service sessions for some of our secondary math teachers on empowering multilingual learners in the math classroom. The educators we worked with were incredibly welcoming, engaged, and deeply committed to their students' success. What stood out most was their eagerness to create meaningful supports, whether it was developing student learner profiles, designing anchor charts, or creating scaffolds for classroom use. Their enthusiasm sparked rich dialogue, and these professional conversations have continued to fuel our collective growth. We are currently in the first year of implementing our MLL Lead Teacher Series, and is already shaping up to be a powerful foundation for long-term capacity building. This professional learning series was designed for a group of teachers who volunteered to participate in after-school sessions, demonstrating their commitment to supporting multilingual learners and strengthening instructional practices across content areas. The goal of the series is to provide new information, tools, resources, and strategies that can be shared in their learning communities. Throughout the year, we've explored topics such as language development, scaffolding strategies, and culturally responsive practices. I am beyond grateful for all of the opportunities I've had to grow, learn, and collaborate alongside such an amazing group of educators and leaders.
In the previous slides, I have mentioned sustainability and building capacity. So, what does this look like in Red Clay? So, to sustain our implementation, we have had ongoing training for new hires, refreshers, and many trainings for our previously trained staff. collaborations district wide with different content areas, a lot of professional conversations, and sharing best practices.
Sustaining a new building based initiative can be challenging, but it's absolutely possible when key systems are in place to support successful adoption of a new framework or program. A shared vision and mission are foundational. They anchor the work and ensure everyone is moving in the same direction with a common purpose. Having a site based team of champions is essential. These individuals not only advocate for the initiative, but they also help build morale and cultivate a climate of excellence within the building. Leadership teams play a critical role in implementation when they're actively involved in providing ongoing job embedded professional learning through PLCs, staff meetings, coaching, and book studies. It reinforces the work and empowers educators to grow together. Consistent data analysis and progress monitoring sessions are also vital. These moments of reflection help leadership teams assess the impact of the initiative and make informed adjustments as needed. I feel incredibly fortunate to collaborate with the coaching team at Stanton, the PSYOP Synergizers at Lewis, and to be a part of the powerful collaborative conversations that are happening in our district. These partnerships exemplify the kind of commitment and collaboration that drives sustained success.
So, we've talked a lot about what we have done, but let's take a look into our collaborations and see who's at the table. To implement the trainings, Natasha Diokno collaborated with multiple content areas and contents at schools and at district level to successfully provide professional development to the teachers. So, next, we're going to hear a little bit about these collaborations from some of the collaborators.
This incredible team of coaches has been so amazing to work with. I am so inspired by their dedication, creativity, and deep commitment to supporting teachers and students. Their collaborative spirit, willingness to dive into tough conversations, and consistent follow through make them invaluable partners in this work. Each interaction leaves me energized and grateful to be a part of a team that truly believes in the power of transformative instruction and collective growth. This team truly symbolizes content language integration, and I cannot wait to see what's next for us.
So last year I attended Delaware Department of Education's math cadre meeting, and at that cadre meeting, they presented a lot of information about the increase of our multilingual learner population. And as a result of that meeting, I thought Red Clay is one of the biggest districts in the northern part of the state, and we need to do something. So I reached out to my supervisor, Jody Albers, and asked if we could create a personalized professional pathway in the next school year's district plan for professional development. She said, great, great idea.
So, Aaron, let's talk a little bit about our PPLP.
So in Red Clay, the secondary math department, we have created over the course of a couple of in-service days sessions that teachers get to choose, and we call them personalized professional learning pathways. And so when Jody Albers allowed us to do the multilingual learners, that was one of the pathways. And we had about 15 teachers. Majority was middle school, but we had a couple of high school teachers, and we wanted to lay the groundwork for acquiring that understanding of multilingual learners and empowering those students. We first thought about the background information that they needed as far as how does a multilingual learner acquire English as the second language.
So we started off talking about English as a second language. What are some factors that affect second language acquisition, like personality, motivation, family dynamics. And then after we discussed the second language acquisition factors, we moved into the scaffolding and the environment. So we had lots of rich conversations.
Absolutely.
And we spent a lot of time getting to know the teachers and supporting them and how they could get to know their students.
Yeah, a lot of the exit tickets that we had during the PPLP, we use them to form the next session. So one of the exit tickets was creating a student profile sheet so that they can use in order to create their instructional lessons. And so they were able to dig deep into their like access scores and the WIDA information, and to put that all in one condensed worksheet.
And our biggest goal was empowering multilingual learners in the classroom, and not just multilingual learners, but all learners. So what tools, what strategies, what supports or visuals as coaches to share with the teachers to share during their Tier 1 instruction.
Yeah, and there really, I mean, I have to say, there really wasn't much to create. We just maybe modified a little bit because the illustrative mathematics curriculum has a lot of supports already embedded into the curriculum. And so it was just a matter of working with the teachers to uncover how we specifically use those supports in our instructional lessons. Illustrative mathematics wants the student to be the main focus, obviously, of the lesson and the driving force of their understanding. So a lot of the supports already embedded help the students voice their understanding to each other, to the teacher, and then that way, again, that helps empower them as a learner.
And I think by our last session, our takeaway as coaches was let's look at the lesson preparation. What can we do to support the lesson preparation as well as the lesson delivery? So how do we tie those two pieces together to make sure that all of our students get what they need?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that having just the lens of a multilingual learner, they were able to like understand fully, oh, I need to have sentence stems, or I need to add some pictures to this context for the student, maybe even change the context that looks more familiar to them and their background. So I think that we were really successful as far as getting the teachers to dig deeper into the illustrative mathematics curriculum.
So Stanton started off with some PSYOP training years ago, and you've had some teacher turnover. And with this collaboration, we've had to look into ways, had an opportunity to look into ways to empower the classroom teacher, to empower the students to take charge of their own learning. So what are some steps moving forward after this collaboration, after our in-service session days? What's the plan? What's coming next?
So, as a result of our PPLP and having conversations with the literacy coach, Laverne, and then our MLL coach here at Stanton, we saw a need to go back to PSYOP. And so we're planning on having specific content, professional learning opportunities next school year during the day, so that then teachers in those specific contents can really collaborate around the instructional needs for the students. So I'm super excited that Stanton's going to have that opportunity.
And I'm super excited to facilitate it. So it'll be a great opportunity for us as coaches to continue the conversation, looking at the curriculum, looking at the instructional delivery, looking at the lesson preparation as far as the lesson, and in addition to the lesson delivery. So it'll be a great conversation.
Hello, now we're going to be talking about how English language arts and literacy has evolved to assist multilingual learners in Red Clay over the past few years. This is my friend Laverne Robinson.
Hello, I'm Laverne Robinson. I'm from Stanton Middle School. I am an instructional coach there and spent 26 years teaching, 5 years as a literacy coach, and I also have a master's in education, K through 8.
And I'm Amy Califoot. I work out of the Red Clay School District office. I am the English language arts instructional coach. This is my 27th year of teaching, 17 years in my position as a district level ELA coach. And I also have my master's in reading with a concentration in ESOL literacy.
Tell me how Red Clay has responded to culturally responsive teaching.
All right, excellent. So we recently adopted a new curriculum, which was the American Reading Company. We tend to call it ARC here in Red Clay. And with ARC, we were able to select our units of study. And we really focus on selecting culturally relevant materials to the students that we have in our classrooms. These materials actually represent the diverse backgrounds of our MLL students and other students that are sitting in our classroom. In our 6th grade classroom, our students are studying ancient civilizations. MLLs and other students can learn about the history of their own culture while they're going through this unit. We also engage in a unit about Latin American literature and culture. Again, where students can see themselves in the literature. Our students from Latin America can see themselves in books, they can see themselves in videos, and they can do some research. And then at the end of this unit, they are given the opportunity to talk about their own culture, whether they are Latin American students or students of any other culture. In addition, our 7th graders study economics, and during that unit, they learn about economists who share their backgrounds and the inventions created by people like that. It allows students to share about themselves. It allows students to see themselves represented in the different materials that they are reading. And I think that's really important because here in Red Clay, we currently have 2,529 multilingual learners as of the 27th of March of this year. We have students from many, many different countries. This is just a really quick glance at the different languages that are spoken in Red Clay. So offering students opportunities to engage with authors and texts and topics that reflect their experiences and values and identities really does make the content more relatable and engaging for our students. And lastly, ARC also offers instructional tips and supports for our MLL students. And these different tips and supports, they're peppered throughout all of the different units. So we've been very fortunate to adopt ARC in our district because the supports definitely are there and they're embedded in the everyday lessons for the students. Rather than treating language learning as a separate task, can you share how instruction has shifted the focus to integrating language development with content knowledge?
I sure can. MLLs are encouraged to engage with both language and academic content of subjects such as science and social studies while they're, tackling the content. This integrated approach helps our students retain language skills, but then also the subject matter more effectively. So when we're looking at our ELA curriculum for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, there are overlap in between the content areas. So when we're talking about our science classrooms and our social studies classrooms and the content that is covered, what we have, it's aligned. And so our units with our science and social studies units, they really lend themselves to build background and front load students with the knowledge needed to tackle the content. Content has been made accessible through differentiation by offering leveled readings and audiobooks to meet the diverse language needs of our students. So we do that not only through the ARC curriculum, but then we also have other resources available to us. Newsella would be one place our students would be able to find text sets that are relevant to their subject matter.
And may I add something in there very
Sure.
quickly? As you can see, the list of Newsella articles, these were actually put together by a team at Newsella for us
Mhm.
here at Red Clay that will supplement each of our units, which we're really grateful for that partnership that we have with Newsella.
So that same idea follows to Sora and then also Epic. So we worked very closely with our MLL department in curating the text sets.
So Laverne, would you be able to explain what types of intentional scaffolding Red Clay has developed to support MLLs effectively?
Absolutely. What we find is teachers use various scaffolds, as visual aids, realia, anchor charts in their classroom, and also picture vocabulary walls that align with their units of study. So with the anchor charts, you can have anything from sentence stems, sentence starters, paragraph frames, different conversational talks. We have wow charts to get the information out of the students' brains and onto paper. So they have some kind of collective resource that they're able to visit throughout the lesson. Here, the economics vocabulary word wall, it's very, very important to provide a picture with the vocabulary that we are explicitly teaching in our units, along with a student-friendly definition. so that the students now have equal access to that vocabulary that we are trying to teach. But not only that, so that they have that as background knowledge for their lesson. And then obviously realia. When we talk about the Earth's core in 6th grade, we have a geology unit. Nothing better than taking a straw and running it through a boiled egg to show how the crust, the core, and the mantle all work together as we talk about the Earth's,
The layers of the earth.
the layers of the Earth. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another resource that we created here in Red Clay are scaffolded graphic organizers, word banks, and sentence stems that have been created for each unit. So this is helpful for our students, not only for our MLL students, but it's best practice for all of our students to have this. So what happens is they have the sentence starter. It allows their thought process to flow. When we're talking about the word banks are there. We're explicitly teaching that vocabulary. We want the students to be able to identify or label diagrams they're using in any unit of study, but it's just a helpful tool. So it takes that processing time out, but they're still being engaged with the content.
And I think it's really important to note that American Reading Company, or ARC, they did provide organizers for us in their curriculum. However, here in Red Clay, we did add these, the scaffolds into it to be able to support the students that may need this.
In addition, we created paragraph and essay frames for larger products. And so those larger products would be our performance tasks. The performance tasks, when you're thinking about the minimally scaffolded product, that would be on our left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, we have the sentence frames and paragraph frames that would be a little heavier with the support.
So teachers are encouraged to develop vocabulary through discussion in their classrooms every day. And so the students, therefore, are given ample opportunities to collaborate and then to discuss their learning. We are very fortunate with the American Reading Company curriculum because they have built in multiple opportunities for students to do this throughout every lesson, throughout every piece of every lesson. For example, they built in accountable talk.
Mhm.
And with accountable talk, students, we have something called a Reader's Writer's Journal that we created here. And we've tried to put little icons in the
Mhm.
Reader's Writer's Journal just to cue our MLLs that, or any other student that it's time to talk. It's time for a think, pair, share. So with the accountable talk, the students are engaged to think pair shares, maybe their turn and talks, and that discourse is then supported with sentence stems and frames if that additional support is needed. Okay, so another useful tool that we use to encourage oral development in our classroom are conversational move charts. American Reading Company gave us the conversational mood chart to the left, which has sentence stems. However, here in Red Clay, with the help of our MLL team, we turned the conversational moves into a more scaffolded document and we integrated pictures. We added pictures to that so that our English language learners, they have an opportunity to see the pictures that will cue them as to what they're being asked to do.
We want to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, please reach out.
So, Ms. Quinn, I am super excited that we are working on this project together. We are collaborating as an MLL district coach and an MLL building coach. When we first started out working together, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, we started out from the coach perspective and the MLL teacher perspective. And now this is your first year in your new role, and we're getting to collaborate some more. We have more opportunities to collaborate to support teaching and learning here at Stanton. So let's talk a little bit about our collaboration.
Okay, great. I think when you said that, yeah, it's definitely about 8 or 9 years ago. We started working together, and then in 2018-19 school year, we started with the SIOP implementation here at Stanton. Myself and the literacy coach, Laverne, we did SIOP training as long as yourself, and it was great. It was great to really bring in what we would call content language integration. And really honing in on the components and the strategies that work for all students. I mean, of course, they benefit multilingual learners, but they benefit all students. And I think that's a really important note to take away.
Right, and the main goal of SIOP is to create independent learners.
Absolutely.
And if we're looking at SIOP as the framework, we're really moving towards content and language integration. We're looking at our content teachers as language teachers. Every teacher is a language teacher. And so really having that mindset shift of these are the MLL teacher students to these are our students. Because realistically, the MLL teacher has the students a reduced amount of time. You really don't get a lot of time
Absolutely.
with the students, and when they're in their content classrooms, if they can speak the language of science, the language of math, the language of social studies, we really want to push that across, that we are growing literacy and language. We want those two
Absolutely.
pieces to be tied together.
Like you said, the ELD or ML teachers, we really only had a short amount of time to work with the students on our specific ELD content. Our ELD content in our curriculum has been bridged with ARC, so there's a nice alignment there. However, I have an amazing ML team here at Stanton, an amazing team of teachers, but the content language integration assists the students when they're not with the ML teacher.
Right.
When they're not having their push-in services, the language acquisition process does not take a back seat with content language integration across all contents. And I think we have to remember that language acquisition is a process.
And so while we're building their social language, we also have to bolster their academic language. We want to give them the academic language of their content areas that they can take back to the classroom. And although we can't give them all of the academic language, we can give them the tools to look for cognates. We can give them the tools to look for examples and to find definitions, so that we're empowering them to take charge of their own learning.
And I also think, to that note, the content language integration piece, it also empowers our teachers. Because a lot of time in coaching this year, I've listened to teacher concerns, teachers' questions, and a lot of teachers want to support their multilingual learners with their content. And I feel with the content language integration piece, we're empowering our learners and our teachers. And I think that's really important, especially I know at our school, we have about 200 multilingual learner students. So it's a large percentage of the students in our classroom. Even if it was the smallest percentage, it's equally as important, but the need is there. So I'm just super excited, and then looking forward until next year, working on content language integration training through SIOP with various contents. We're going to have one for each content, and the teachers are really going to be able to look at the content, their curriculum, through the lens of SIOP and content language integration, and really plan and see how this works with their curriculum for their students. So I'm really looking forward to that.
And so our goal with that training will be to continue to build capacity, to continue and encourage collaborations between the district and the school, and between content area teachers as well, along with the MLL teachers. And also just to sustain the process within our faculty meetings, within professional learning communities, and just to have that ongoing conversations and creating a culture of sharing. Sharing our students, sharing our best practices, sharing our scaffolds and supports, or whatever visuals we're creating, so that we can all work smarter and not harder.
I couldn't agree more. But I just thank you. This has been an amazing opportunity, and I look forward to our continued work.
Yep. Thank you for the collaboration.
At the school level, teachers, coaches, and administrators are all involved in the planning for the instruction of our MLL students. In the next section, we'll walk you through how we've taken the ELD instruction and strategically matched it with the core classroom curriculum. This alignment helps multilingual learners access grade-level content while developing language skills at the same time. You will hear directly from Michelle Bartlett, the coach that realigned the curriculum. We'll break down our approach and share some examples. You will also hear from a few students and how they feel about the curriculum realignment. can you explain the realignment of our curriculum and what does the scope and sequence look like now?
Sure. So when we started looking through the inside curriculum, and I was tasked with looking at it in a different way. So when we first started looking at curriculum, I worked with the Reach and Ready Gen. Reach is the elementary version of the inside curriculum. So Ready Gen is what our elementary teachers were teaching. And the thing that we noticed that was happening a lot, where students were feeling kind of disconnected, the work was not the same, they weren't doing similar topics or themes. It was kind of more work for the ELD teachers to make connections for their students. So one of the things that I really like to do is to look at curriculum as a large scope and then find ways to fit the same curriculum together. So I took apart a lot of what we were doing for the Reach curriculum and lined it up with Ready Gen, so that when students were being taken from their homeroom and they were being pulled out for ELD instruction, the things that they were learning about were similar, so that they could support with additional vocabulary knowledge, or even just skills about writing, putting sentences together, things like that. Because of the success that we've had with that, with our elementary school teachers, Carol, my boss, had asked us to take a deeper look at what we were doing with the middle school. So our middle school ELA curriculum is ARC, and they had chosen to go with that. And then in an overall scope and sequence type of way, I looked at the ARC curriculum, which is our ELA, and the ELA performance tasks, and social studies and science curriculum. I mapped them all together for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and created kind of a quick guide chart just to see what topics were being covered and what the essential skills were for an ELA. Then, because I wanted to try to find a way to better align, or realign, I should say, the work from inside, I took a deep dive into all 3 texts and decided that it would probably be better served to have our students working on similar themes and ideas and concepts based on what they were doing in their ELA classrooms. So in turn, I opened every book and looked at every text and tried to decide which ones would fit the best with what was happening in their ELA sections. So that turned into becoming middle school realignment curriculum with our inside materials lined up to match whatever they were doing in their ELA classes. So 6th grade might have texts in a different order from the inside book, but they'll match what they're doing in their ELA classroom. 7th grade pulls things from level A, level B, and level C. And then 8th grade is primarily level C, but also with some supplemental materials from level B and level A. Because trying to match themes was a bit of a challenge for some of the texts, we did have to go a little off curriculum, not pace, but just trying to find the right things that would fit with the right themes. Some of them were harder, like the westward expansion unit was a little bit tougher to find something that matched, but I did manage to pull in one of the texts about early America, and I feel like that one actually built out a beginning point, a starting point for some of the units. The majority of them, though, did have a nice line up between the 2 curriculum.
Yeah, and it has worked really well. And I know in Western Expansion, we even pulled some articles to go along with what we were doing. Mm-hmm. And the Constitution was also involved, but that matched what they were doing in social studies.
Right, and that was the other thing, was if we couldn't perfectly match it to what they were doing in their ELA class, I did take a look at science and social studies to see if there was a way that we could bring it into that as well.
Okay. So what prompted the realignment, and what was your process?
So the big prompt was speaking with teachers and realizing that a lot of their students were feeling frustrated and disconnected to what they were doing in their mainstream classrooms, and then feeling like teachers were teaching a whole different unit in their ELD classrooms. And really my goal was to make it so that students would feel supported all the way across the board and not feel like taking an ELD class was another course that they had to learn a whole new set of stuff. So to try to manage that, it was like I said, where I really had to crack every book and think and look at every text and think about which ones made the most sense with which unit. There were a lot of decisions that had to be made, and I don't know that they were all perfect, but I did the best that I could. And I feel like at the end of it, with several revisions and some teachers' feedback, I felt like we really got a pretty solid curriculum going that lined up what was going on in their ELA classrooms. Some of the texts, again, are something else that I wanted to do, that was to allow for some teacher flexibility and some choice. So I did include a few passages within each unit so that they would have an option to say, like, okay, I don't have time to do all of these. Let me pick one that's really strong. So I gave them a couple options to choose from. As a teacher, I know that you have to work with the kids who are in your classroom, and not everyone is going to be able to access something at the same point as the curriculum might be written at. That's okay, right? We work with our students who are in our classrooms. But the reality is that we need to give you something to work on. So finding a few texts that varied in difficulty level was also a goal, so that teachers could make those executive decisions in their classrooms and do what was best for their students.
Yeah, it's nice to have the framework and have the ability to pull in other articles and things like that to go along with it. So
Right.
I like the flexibility.
Oh, good, I'm glad.
So how are students assessed, and how should we assess this new program?
So those are great questions. Currently, I believe the assessments are generally what's attached to what's in the inside program. They do come with automatic assessments after each text. If there was an assessment included for the text, I did put that into the folder. All of the curriculum was created on Google Drive because it was the easiest way for me to share it widely with all of the teachers, and for them to be able to give me commentary if things needed to change or if they had a question about something. Obviously, I'm open. Email is always open as well. So if there's something that came up that they were like, that's not going to work for us, I could get feedback that way. But I'm not really sure how everyone feels about the restructuring of the curriculum. So that's something that I'm going to focus on for the remainder of the school year, is to reach out to everyone and say, give me some feedback. Let me know what worked, what didn't, what would you like to change. And then I know you shared something awesome about how you assessed your own students with the vocabulary. Can you share a little bit about that too?
Sure. So I wanted to just have sort of an idea of, is this helping? And so I pulled some of the ARC vocabulary and gave them a pre-test, and then gave them a post-test just to see were they able to understand the words that were included in the ARC vocabulary and in what we were doing in the classroom. And we saw improvements. So it seems to be working. I've also, my students have told me that they feel like this is helpful. The one student came back and said that something on the test was not something she did in an RQ, but she had learned it in my class, and so she was very excited about that. And so I feel like we're only halfway through the year and we're still learning how to make it work, but I definitely think this is a positive change, and it does help the kids in their classroom. And one of the other concerns I had was we were not necessarily on the same pace as the teachers. Maybe they did it differently, or they got a little behind or spent longer on science fiction before they started Westward Expansion. And so I was teaching Westward Expansion and they hadn't started yet, but it turned out that, it was giving them confidence once they did start in the classroom, and it was pre-teaching the vocabulary and the ideas. So it's working.
That's awesome. That's one of the other goals that I really thought was wonderful about doing a crosswalk, is that generally you might, because you have control over what happens in your classroom, your pace could be a little bit faster than what they're doing in their ELA classrooms for whatever reason. And I love that you mentioned that the kids feel good about knowing something beforehand. So they go into their mainstream classes and feel like they are experts. They already have built-in prior knowledge. That is a goal and really a strong point for all language learners to feel like they have confidence.
Yes, I think it is helpful for ELD teachers to teach the same topic as ELA teachers. It is helpful for students to learn more about the topic, and it gives you a better understanding on what you're learning about. Another reason why it is helpful is because ELD teachers teach the ELA subject topics earlier than the ELA teachers teach them to you. In my opinion, it did help. For example, my ELA class, my teacher was talking and she mentioned a vocabulary word that I didn't know, and then I remembered that word from ELD that I learned. Yes, it does help. 1 month ago, we had a test on civil rights unit in ELA class. The teacher let us use our RQs, but some of the questions weren't really on the RQs. Thankfully, in ULD, we had we have read about a book in civil rights unit, which helped me on those questions. I got a 18 out of 20, while other people got like 12s out of 20s or like 10s out of 20s.
Yes, the things we have learned in this class have has helped me in my normal classes. This is because when we talked about a certain subject, I was always ahead of people due to the multiple things we did in this class. Also, it helped me do my work quicker.
Thank you for coming with us on our implementation journey. But one takeaway is that every teacher is a language teacher. And I think it's safe to say it's an all hands on deck approach to ensure all of our students have the tools that they need to be successful. Thank you so much for joining our presentation today. Below, there will be a link for you to fill out a form to leave any questions or comments. Have a great day, and thanks for joining us once again.